We're talking with Professor Kyle Hubbard of the Philosophy Department here at Saint Anselm College about his new project on the concept of love in St. Augustine. So could you tell us a little bit about the project that you're going to be working on?
Yes, I'm really looking forward to this project because it came out of my dissertation, which was on Augustine on loving God. And so my project is going to be, I'm imagining it as an Augustinian symposium. In the symposium, Plato has Socrates in dialogue with all these different contemporary figures on the topic of love, what love is. And so I'm imagining my project as an Augustinian symposium. That is, it's going to be a lot of other philosophers in conversation with Augustine on the topic of love. So I think Augustine has a unique account of love that has had quite a bit of influence, so much so that we even see contemporary philosophers like Jacques Derrida has written a whole book on Augustine. And so there's even 1600 years later, there is still quite a lot of interest in what Augustine says, and particularly on the concept of love.
Oftentimes when people write a book or engage in a project of the sort that you're doing in, they're inspired by some personal insight or personal connection that the topic has. Has this concept of love and Augustine's view of love in particular had an influence on your life, or was there a particular moment when you knew this is what you wanted to work on?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a good question. So I might go back to the beginning. The first time I read Augustine, I was in a great books class. That if you've seen the other videos I mentioned, that I read Augustine's Confessions, and there was something, even though he wrote it in about 400 AD, there was something that felt so contemporary about it, what Augustine cared about, and particularly his notion of love and desire was something that stuck with me. So I don't know if as a high schooler I knew I would be interested in this for a project or for a book. But I think particularly that idea that love really is a kind of desire for union with the other. And it's a union that requires some self-sacrifice. That is something that has been helpful for my marriage, something that's been helpful for the relationship with my kids, my parents, my friends.
So many of our students will have encountered St. Augustine in conversatio, reading on free choice of the will. Where's the material in Augustine that you're going to be thinking about and working on, and what do you think our students would have to learn from this material that they may not be familiar with?
Yeah. Primarily, Augustine talks about love in a few places. He talks about it in some sections of the City of God, which is his magnum opus on the differences between the city of human beings, Rome, and the city of God, the heavenly city. He also talks about love quite a bit in a personal way in the Confessions, and a lot of what he says about loving God and loving human beings, including friendship, even his version, we might say, of romantic love. There's pieces of it there. And then he particularly talks about love in his homilies on 1 John, which is the epistle where the author identifies God with love. And so Augustine spends a lot of those homilies, his talks on that epistle, reflecting philosophically on what love is and what it means to call God love.
So many people, when they hear the word love, think of romantic love, the concept that had been developed in modern times by the Romantics and others. How is Augustine's view of love and the type of love that you're going to be talking about different, and what do you think a modern person has to learn from Augustine on love?
Yeah. So as you say, kind of romantic view of love that has come down to us, right? It comes from maybe the chivalric tradition or something in the Middle Ages and then in the modern period. And so now when we talk about love, we often think of falling in love and romantic love. And Augustine's position is not entirely different from that. While he might not have had as much of a notion of romantic love that we do, he thinks love primarily is desire, right? It's another word for desire. Augustine says we basically are what we love. What we love determines what we do, the choices that we make. And so Augustine thinks the right ordering of our loves is that is who and what we love and to what extent that we love them determines who we are as a person. It determines kind of whether we're a good person or a bad person, because we can love good things and good people, or we can love things like committing crimes or stealing pears, right? As Augustine makes clear. But particularly Augustine's notion of love is that it's a kind of what others have called a unity of agape and eros. That means a kind of unity of both I love somebody because of what this person does for me, and yet there is an element of self-sacrifice. And so I would argue we have a lot to learn from this notion, because even when it comes to romantic love, right, a romantic love, a romantic relationship is not going to be sustained simply by loving the other person only for what he or she does for me. Right? I actually need to sustain a romantic relationship. I actually need to have some level of self-sacrifice, some level of a kind of self-sacrificial element that says I'm going to care and do things for this person and love this person in spite of what they've done to me, but where I'm actually going to love them for their own sake.
I know that you teach, you have taught a course on love and friendship, and you teach other courses in ethics. Does the research that you're going to be doing, does it gonna have an impact on your teaching?
Yes, it will. Well, for one thing, as probably many of you know, in Conversatio we read Augustine. With some years we've done confessions. Right now we're not doing any part of the confessions, just on free choice of will. So some of what we talk about in this class bears, or some of what I'm doing in my project bears on what might come up in the Augustine unit. But there's quite a bit that we might talk about on the topic of love as well. I think particularly of the color of water, and we talk. My students, at least in my seminars, have talked quite a bit about this concept of family love. Right? Does Ruth actually love her children, even though she acts in all sorts of crazy ways to them? Right? How do we know that she loves her children? Right? What is love? We've asked those questions. So there's Conversatio. There's some of the other courses I teach, the Human Nature Seminar, the Introduction to Great Books, where some years I read the Confessions, and so there's we always talk about this topic. What Augustine says there in Book 4 about friendship. What he when he has to dismiss the mother of his child, right? What's going on there? How do we think about this? How could he do such a thing, right, for somebody that he seems to have a degree of attachment, desire, love for? And then my philosophy of love and friendship class that I've been able to teach a couple times, that is entirely framed around the different kinds of love, thinking about love in terms of affection, familial affection, thinking about love in terms of eros or romantic love, thinking about love in terms of charity or agape. So that whole course is devoted in thinking well and clearly about love, what love is. Is there some kind of unity to all these, all the kinds of loves that we talk about? And I think Augustine is one of the main proponents of the view that yes, all the different kinds of emotions and desires that we call love does have something in common. It's this desire for union with the beloved that's both has this self-sacrificial element, but also this desire that reflects on what one wants.
So, does the concept of love that you're going to be working on, does it find a reflection in the rule of Benedict and the foundation of the type of Anselmian community and hospitality that we try to build on campus?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm trying to think. In the rule, he certainly talks about how to be in relationship with others in your community, and certainly in the Christian tradition that Benedict emphasizes this idea that God is love, that ultimately the kind of relation that a human being, that the monks are supposed to have and that others are supposed to have with God is rooted in love. It's not rooted in fear. It's not rooted in mere obligation. It's actually rooted in love. So in that Christian tradition that Benedict is in, that how we love actually reflects who God is and actually kind of embodies God. So on this campus, right, as we think about what it means to be Benedictine, what it means to be Anselmian, right? I think both Anselm and Benedict would say ultimately it comes down to love. Are we going to simply treat others in a way that I'm only looking to kind of get something from them, or am I actually going to care about another for her own sake?